Hi everyone and welcome to the Intellection Surge. In this video on Spinoza's philosophy, we will try to clear all misconceptions about Spinoza's God by better understanding the differences between his conception of God and the gods in religion. We already saw in the last episode that Spinoza's God is very singular. According to him, God is nature. It's everything that is. It's an infinite substance that makes everything that exists, has existed, and will exist. And we also saw that Spinoza's definition of God as nature got him into trouble. Remember, he was excommunicated in 1656. But what's the big deal about Spinoza's God anyway? Why did it bring so much trouble to Spinoza? Well, this is exactly what this video is about, trying to understand why Spinoza's God put him into conflict with the religious authorities at the time. When you think about it, Spinoza's definition of God is very materialistic. God or nature is matter. It's the laws of nature that make matter assemble or disassemble. And the very first problem about Spinoza's God is, well, that it doesn't really care about us.
Red, you go. Where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
And actually saying this is already saying too much. God cannot care or not care since it is not conscious. It doesn't have a will. God or nature is blind. It simply blindly follows its own course. There is no finality in Spinoza's philosophy. And by the way, did you know that Aristotle defined 4 different kinds of causes? This is something that I'll tackle on a side video, but just to let you know, causality is everywhere in Spinoza's philosophy. But you won't find any final cause in it, as it is an illusion according to Spinoza. But we'll see that later. So God just is and blindly follows its own laws, which means that there is no special plan for you. Let's take an example. Let's say you've just missed a bus to go to an important job interview. A religious person might interpret the event as a sign from God. God has another plan for me. Religious people usually think that everything happens for a reason. That is to say, everything happens because of God's will. This is not true for Spinozist. A follower of Spinoza understands that everything happens because of a series of causes, and not reason. The bus is late because of several events that I might not know about, and it couldn't have been otherwise. For the next interview, a Spinozist will use this knowledge to plan ahead and arrive earlier at the bus stop. The thing is, nature doesn't change depending on how you behave or on God's plans for you. Spinoza's God isn't a personal providential God. Let's hear what Stephen Nadler, professor of philosophy and expert on Spinoza, has to say about Spinoza's God.
Spinoza's God has none of the requisite psychological and moral characteristics required for the exercise of providence. Above all, Spinoza's God is numerically identical with nature. God is nature. Therefore, God has no will, intentions, or plans. God is not wise, just, good, or providential in any sense whatsoever. There is no supernatural. The only thing that is nature. And God is identical with this nature. And whatever happens in the universe happens necessarily simply as a result of the laws and processes of nature. Spinoza, in other words, completely rejects the personal anthropomorphic conception of God that grounds traditional sectarian religions, which Spinoza regards simply as organized superstitions.
So Spinoza's God is very different from the God we find in religions. According to the Dutch philosopher, religion's gods are born from superstition. And in order to better understand this, let's do a quick thought experiment based on one of the most famous passages from the Ethics. Let's imagine for a moment that a friend just died and you're breaking the news to a relative. This person will immediately ask you what happened. You'll tell him that a tile fell on his head as he was leaving his building. Your friend will ask, but how could this happen? You'll tell him that the wind made the tile fall on your friend's head. But he will ask why again, and you'll tell him that there was a storm that day. And he will ask why and why and why. From why to why, the causes will be harder and harder to find. to the point that when you don't have any answer anymore, your friend might stop searching for causes but start looking for reasons, as if the death of your friend was a result of a will. And this is the birth of superstition. We can't fight our need to understand the world around us. And when the answers are not satisfying enough, we assume that whatever happens to us or others might very well be the result of someone's will. And when there isn't anyone behind, this anyone becomes God. And this is where the religion's gods are born, according to Spinoza. They are born from our ignorance of the causes.
Like most living creatures, the pigeon quickly associates the pressing of the lever and the reward. But when a timer releases a seed automatically every 20 seconds, the pigeon wonders, what did I do to deserve this? If it was flapping its wings at the time, it'll continue to flap, convinced that its actions have a decisive influence on what happens. We call this pigeon superstition.
But then a very interesting question comes to mind. Why did Spinoza call nature God? Why calling it God in the first place if his God is so different from what we find in religious books? And this question will be answered in our next video. As usual, let's do a quick recap of what we learned today. We've learned that, as opposed to religion's gods, Spinoza's God has no will or intention. It blindly follows its own course. We learned that we are not special, Spinoza's God has no plan for us, there is no heaven, there is no hell, and we've learned that Spinoza's God is not a personal, providential God. We saw that the religious gods are born from superstition. When our urge to understand the world around us doesn't find any satisfying answer, we assume that a will must have been at work, which is a fallacy, according to Spinoza. Thanks everyone for watching this video on Spinoza's God of Nature. Feel free to let your comments below. And again, don't forget to subscribe to get more of that good stuff. See you later.